Transport in plants. Have you ever wondered how water reaches to the top of tall trees, or for that matter how and why substance move from one cell to another, whether all substance move in a similar way in the same direction, and whether metabolically energy is required for moving substance? Plant need to move molecules over very long distance, much more than animals do. They also do not have a circulatory system in place. Water taken up by roots is had to reach all part of the plant up to very tip of the growing stem. The photosynthesis or food synthesized by the leaves have also to be moved to all parts, including the root tip embedded deep inside the soil. Movement across short distance, say within the cell, across the membrane, and from cell to cell within the tissue has also to take place. To understand some of the transport process that take place in plants, one would have to recollect one's basic knowledge about structure of the cell and the anatomy of the plant body. We also need to revisit our understanding of diffusion besides gaining some knowledge about chemical potential and ion. When we talk of movement of substance, we need first to define what kind of movement we are talking about, and also what substance we are looking at. In the flowering plants, the substance that would need to be transported are water, minerals, nutrient, organic nutrient, and plant growth regulator. Over small distance, substance move by diffusion and by cytoplasmic staining supplements by active transport. Transport over longer distance proceeds through the vascular system, the xylem and the phloem, and is called translocation. An important aspect that need to be considered is the direction of transport. In rooted plant, transport is xylem of water and minerals is essentially unidirectional from root to the stem. Organic and material nutrient, however, undergo unidirectional transport. Organic compound synthesis in the photosynthetic leaves are exported to all other parts of the plant, including storage organ. From the storage organ, they are later re-exported. The mineral nutrients are taken up by the roots and transported upward into the stem, leaves, and the growing region. When any plant part undergoes sensient nutrient may be withdrawn from such region and moved to the growing part. Hormones or plant growth regulator and other chemical signals are also transported, though in very small amount, sometimes in a strictly polarized or unidirectional manner, from where they are synthesized to other parts. Hence, in a flowering plant, there is a complex traffic of compound but probably very orderly, moving in different directions, each organ receiving some substance and giving out some others. Means of transport. 1. Diffusion. Movement by diffusion is passive and may be from one part to the part of the cell to the other, or from cell to cell, or over short distance, say from the intercellular space of the leaf to the outside. No energy expenditure takes place in diffusion. Molecules move in random fashion, the net result being substance moving from region of higher concentration to region of lower concentration. Diffusion is a slow process and is not dependent on living system. Diffusion is obvious in gases and liquid, but diffusion in solid is more likely rather than of solid. Diffusion is very important to plant since it is the only means for gaseous movement within the plant body. Diffusion rates are affected by the gradient of concentration, the permeability of membrane, separating them, temperature and pressure facilitate diffusion. As pointed out earlier, a gradient must already be present for diffusion to occur. The diffusion rate depends on the size of the substances. Obviously, smaller substances diffuse faster. The diffusion of any substance across the membrane also depends on its solubility in lipids, the major constituent of the membrane. Substances soluble in lipid diffuse through the membrane faster. Substances that have a hydrophilic moiety find it difficult to pass through the membrane. Their movement has to be facilitated. Membrane proteins provide a site at which such molecules cross the membrane. They do not set up a concentration gradient. A concentration gradient must already be present for molecules to diffuse, even if facilitated by the proteins. This process is called facilitated diffusion. In facilitated diffusion, special proteins help move substance across membrane without expenditure of ATP energy. Facilitated diffusion cannot cause net transport of molecules from a low to high concentration. This would require input of energy. Transport rate reaches a maximum when all of the protein transport are being used. Saturation facilitated diffusion is very specific. It allows cell to select substance for uptake. It is sensitive to inhibitor which react with protein side chain. The protein form channel in the membrane for molecules to pass through. Some channels are always open, others can be controlled. Some are large, allowing a variety of molecules to cross. The porins are proteins that form large pores in the outer membrane of the plastid. Mitochondria and some bacteria allow molecules up to size of small protein to pass through. The figure shows an extracellular molecule bound to the transport protein. The transport protein then rotate and release the molecules inside the cell. Example, water channel made up of 8 different types of aquaporins. Passive synpode and antipode. Some carrier or transport proteins allow diffusion only if two types of molecules move together. In a synpode, both molecules cross the membrane in the same direction. In an antipode, they move in opposite direction. When a molecule moves across a membrane independent of other molecules, the process is called unipode. Active transport. Active transport uses energy to transport and pump molecules against a concentration gradient. Active transport is carried out by specific membrane protein. Hence, different proteins in the membrane play a major role in both active as well as passive transport. Pumps are proteins that use energy to carry substance across the cell membrane. These pumps can transport substance from a lower concentration to a higher concentration uphill transport. Transport rate reaches a maximum when all the protein transporters are being used or are saturated. Like enzyme, the carrier proteins is very specific in what it carries across the membrane. These proteins are sensitive to inhibitors that react with protein side chain. Comparison of different transport processes. Table gives a comparison of the different transport mechanism. Proteins in the membrane are responsible for facilitating diffusion and active transport, and hence shows common characteristics of being highly selective. They are liable to saturate, respond to inhibitor, and are under hormonal regulation. But diffusion, whether facilitated or not, take place only along a gradient and do not use energy. Simple diffusion, facility transport, active transport. Require special membrane protein, facility transport yes, active transport yes. Highly selective, facility transport yes, active transport yes. Transport saturates, facility transport yes, active transport yes. Uphill transport only, active transport yes. Require ATP energy, active transport yes. Plant water relation. Water is essential for all physiological activities of the plant and plays a very important role in all living organisms. It provides the medium in which most substances are dissolved. The protoplasm of the cell is nothing but water in which different molecules are dissolved and several particles suspended. A watermelon has over 92% water. Most herbaceous plants have only about 10 to 15% of its fresh weight or as dry matter. Of course, distribution of water within a plant varies. Woody parts have relatively very little water, while soft parts mostly contain water. A seed may appear dry, but it still has water. Otherwise, it would not be alive and respiratory. Terrestrial plants take up huge amount of water daily, but most of it is lost to air through evaporation from leaves, that is transpiration. A mature corn plant absorbs almost 3 liters of water in a day, while a mustard plant absorbs water equal to its own weight in about 5 hours. Because of this high demand of water, it is not surprising that water is often the limiting factor for plant growth and productivity in both agriculture and natural environments. Water potential. To comprehend plant water relation and understanding of certain standard term is necessary. Water potential (SIW) is a concept fundamental to understanding water movement. Solute potential (SIS) and pressure potential (SIP) are the two main components that determine water potential. Water molecule possesses kinetic energy in liquid and gaseous form. They are in random motion that is both rapid and constant. The greater the concentration of water is in a system, the greater in its kinetic energy or water potential. Hence, it is obvious that pure water will have the greatest water potential. If two systems contain water are in contact, random movement of water molecules will result in net movement of water molecules from the system with highly energy to the one with lower energy. Thus, water will move from the system containing water and higher water potential to the one having low water potential. This process movement of substance down a gradient of free energy is called diffusion. Water potential is denoted by the Greek word symbol psi and is expressed in pressure units such as Pascal. By convention, the water potential of pure water at standard temperature, which is not under any pressure, is taken to be 0. If some solute is dissolved in pure water, the solution has fewer free water molecules and the concentration free energy of water decreases, reducing its water potential. Hence, all solutions have a lower water potential than pure water. The magnitude of this lowering due to dissolution of a solute is called solute potential or psi S. Psi S is always negative. The more the solute molecules, the lower, the more negative is the psi S. For a solution at atmospheric pressure, water potential psi W is equal to solute potential psi S. If a pressure greater than atmospheric pressure is applied to pure water or a solution, its water potential increases. It is equivalent to pumping water from one place to another. Can you think of any system in our body where pressure is built up? Pressure can build up in a plant system when water enters a plant cell due to diffusion causing a pressure built up against the cell wall, it makes the cell target. This increases the pressure potential. Pressure potential is usually positive though in plants, negative potential or tension in the water column in the xylem plays a major role in water transport of a stream. Pressure potential is denoted as psi p. Water potential of a cell is affected by both solute and pressure potential. The relationship between them is as follows: psi w equal psi s plus psi p. Osmosis. The plant cell is surrounded by a cell membrane and a cell wall. The cell wall is freely permeable to water and substance in solution, hence is not a barrier to movement. In plants, the cell usually contain a large central vacuole whose content, the vacuole shape, contribute to solute potential of the cell. In plant cell, the cell membrane and membrane of vacuoles, the tonoplast together are important determinant of movement of molecules in or out of the cell. Osmosis is the term used to refer specifically to diffusion of water across a differentially or selectively permeable membrane. Osmosis occurs spontaneously in response to a driving force. The net direction and rate of osmosis depends on both pressure gradient and concentration gradient. Water will move from its region of higher chemical potential or concentration to its region of lower chemical potential until equilibrium is reached. At equilibrium, the two chambers should have nearly the same water potential. You may have made a potato osmometer in your earlier classes in school. If the potato tube is placed in water, the water enters into the cavity in the potato tube containing concentration solution of sugar due to osmosis. Study figure which is the two chambers A and B containing solution are separated by a semi-permeable membrane. A solution of which chamber has a lower water potential, B solution of which chamber has a lower solute potential, C in which direction will osmosis occur, D which solution has a higher solute potential, E at equilibrium which chamber will have lower water potential. If one chamber has a psi of 200 kPa and other minus 2000 kPa and other minus 1000 kPa, which is the chamber that has a higher psi? G. What will be the direction of the movement of water when the two solutions with psi equal 0.2 MPa and psi equal to 0.1 MPa are separated by a selectively permeable membrane? Let us discuss another experiment where a solution of sucrose in water taken in a funnel of separated from pure water in a beaker by a selectively permeable membrane. You can get this kind of membrane in an egg. Remove the yolk and albumin through a small hole at one end of the egg and place the cell in dilute solution of hydrochloric acid of a few hours. The egg cell dissolves, leaving the membrane intact. Water will move into the funnel, resulting the rise in the level of the solution in the funnel. This will continue till the equilibrium is reached. In case sucrose does diffuse out through the membrane, will this equilibrium be ever reached? External pressure can be applied from the upper part of the funnel such that no water diffuses in the funnel through the membrane. This pressure required to prevent water from diffusing is in fact the osmotic pressure, and this is the function of the solute concentration. More the solute concentration, greater will be the pressure required to prevent water from diffusing in. Numerically, osmotic pressure is equivalent to the osmotic potential, but The sign is opposite. Osmotic pressure is the positive pressure applied while osmotic potential is negative. Plasmolysis. The behavior of the plant cell or tissues with regard to the water movement depends on the surrounding solution. If the external solution balances the osmotic pressure of the cytoplasm, it is said to be isotonic. If the external solution is more dilute than the cytoplasm, it is hypotonic. And if the external solution is more concentrated, it is hypertonic. Cell swell in hypotonic solution and shrink in hypertonic one. Plasmolysis occurs when water moves out of the cell and cell membrane of the plant cell shrink away from its cell wall. This occurs when the cell or tissue is placed in a solution that is hypertonic. As more solute to the protoplasm, water moves out, it is first lost from the cytoplasm and then from the vacuole. The water, when drawn out of the cell through diffusion into the extracellular outside cell fluid, causes the protoplasm to sink away from the wall. The cell is said to be plasmolyzed. The movement of water occurs across the membrane, moving from an area of higher water potential the cell to an area of lower water potential outside the cell. What occupies the space between the cell wall and the sunken chloroplast in the plasmolyzed cell? When the cell or tissue is placed in an isotonic solution, there is no net flow of water towards the inside or outside. If the external solution balances the osmotic pressure of the cytoplasm, it is said to be isotonic. When the water flows into the cell and out of the cell and are in equilibrium, the cells are said to be flaccid. The process of plasmolysis is usually reversible. When the cells are placed in a hypotonic solution, higher water potential or dilute solution as compared to the cytoplasm, water diffuses into the cell, causing the cytoplasm to build up a pressure against the wall that is called target pressure. The pressure exerted by the protoplast due to the entry of water against the rigid wall is called pressure potential psi P. Because of the rigidity of the cell wall, the cell does not rupture. This target pressure is ultimately responsible for enlargement and extension growth of cell. What would be the psi P of a flaccid cell? Which organism other than plants possesses the cell wall? In imbibition. Imbibition is a special type of diffusion when water is absorbed by solid colloid, causing them to increase in volume. The classical example of imbibition are absorption of water by seeds and dry wood. The pressure that is produced by the swelling of wood had been used by prehistoric men to split rock and boulders. If it were not for the pressure due to imbibition, seeding would not have been able to emerge out of the soil into the open. They probably would not have been able to establish. Imbibition is also diffusion since water movement is along a concentration gradient. The seed and other such materials have almost no water, hence they absorb water easily. Water potential gradient between the absorbent and the liquid imbibed essential for imbibition. In addition, for any subsequent substance to imbibe any liquid, affinity between absorbent and the liquid is also a prerequisite. Long distance transport of water. At some earlier stage, you might have carried out an experiment where you had placed a twig bearing white flower in colored water and had watched it turn color. On examining the card end of the twig after a few hours, you had noticed the region through which the colored water moved. The experiment very easily demonstrated that the path of water movement is through the vascular bundle, more specifically the xylem. Now we have to go further and try and understand the mechanism of movement of water and other substance of a plant. Long distance transport of substance within plant cannot be by diffusion alone. Diffusion is a slow process. It cannot for only short distance movement. It can account for a only short distance movement of molecules. For example, the movement of a molecule across a typical plant cell, about 50 micrometer, takes place approximately 2.5 seconds. At this rate, can you calculate how many years it would take place for movement of molecules over a distance of 1 meter within a plant by diffusion alone? In large and complex organisms, often substances have to be moved to long distance. Sometimes the site of production or absorption and site of storage are too far from each other. Diffusion or active transport would not suffice. Special long distance transport systems become necessary so as to move substance across long distance and at a much faster rate. Water and minerals and food are generally moved by a mass or bulk flow system. Mass flow is the movement of substance in bulk or in mass form from one point to another as a result of pressure differences between the 2 points. It is a characteristic of mass flow that substances, whether in solution or in suspension, are swept along at the same pace as in a flowing river. This is unlike diffusion, where different substances move independently depending on their concentration gradient. Bulk flow can be achieved either through a positive hydrostatic pressure gradient, example garden hose, or a negative hydrostatic pressure gradient, example suction through a straw. The bulk movement of substances through the conducting or vascular tissue of plant is called translocation. Do you remember studying cross-section of roots, stems and leaves of higher plants and studying the vascular system? The higher plants have highly specialized vascular tissue, xylem and phloem. Xylem is associated with translocation of mainly water, mineral salt, and some organic nitrogen and hormones from roots to the aerial parts of the plant. The phloem translocate a variety of organic and inorganic solute mainly from the leaves to the other parts of the plant. How do plants absorb water? We know that the root absorbs most of water that goes into plant. Obviously, that is why we apply water to the soil and not on the leaf. The responsibility of absorption of water and minerals is more specifically the function of the root hair that are present in millions at the tips of the root. Root hair are thin-walled, slender extension of root epidermal cell that greatly increase the surface area for absorption. Water is absorbed along with minerals solute by the root hair purely by diffusion. Once water is absorbed by the root hairs, it can move deeper into root layer by two distinct pathways: apoplast pathway, symplast pathway. The apoplast is the system of adjacent cell wall that is continuous throughout the plant, except the casparin strips of the endodermis in the root. The apoplastic movement of water occurs exclusively through the intercellular spaces and the wall of the cell. Movement through the apoplast does not involve crossing the cell. Membrane. This movement is dependent on the gradient. The apoplast does not provide any barrier to water movement, and water movement is through mass flow. As water evaporates in the intercellular phase or the the atmosphere. Tension develop in the continuous stream of water in the apoplast, hence mass flow of water occurs due to adhesive and cohesive properties of water. The symplastic system is the system of interconnected protoplasts. Neighboring cells are connected through cytoplasmic strands that extend through plasmodesmata. During symplastic movement, water travels through the cell or their cytoplasm. Intercellular movement is through the plasmodesmata. Water has to enter the cell through the cell membrane, hence the movement is relatively slower. Movement is again down a potential gradient. Symplastic movement may be aided by cytoplasmic streaming. You may have observed cytoplasmic streaming in cell of the hydrilla leaf. The movement of chloroplast due to streaming is easily visible. Most of the water flow in the root occur via the apoplast since the cortical cells are loosely packed and hence offer no resistance to water movement. However, the inner boundary of the cortex, the endodermis, is impervious to water because of a band of suberized matrix called the Caspian strip. Water molecules are unable to penetrate the layer, so they are directed to wall regions that are not suberized. Into the cell proper through the membranes. The water then moves through the symplast and again across a membrane to reach the cell of the xylem. The movement of water through the root layer is ultimately symplastic in the endodermis. This is the only way water and other solute can enter the vascular cylinder. Once inside the xylem, water is again free to move between cells as well as through them. In young root, water enters directly in the xylem vessel and or tracheates. These are non-living conduits and so are parts of apoplast. The path of water and minerals ion into the root vascular system is summarized in figure. Some plants have additional structure associated with them that helps in water and minerals absorption. A mycorrhiza is a symbiotic association of fungus with a root system. The fungal filaments form a network around the young root or they penetrate the root cell. The hyphae have a very large surface area that absorb mineral ion and water from the soil from a much larger volume of soil that perhaps a root cannot do. The fungus provides mineral and water to the roots. In turn, the root provides sugar and nitrogen containing compounds to the mycorrhiza. Some plants have an obligate association with the mycorrhiza. For example, peanut seeds cannot germinate and establish without the presence of mycorrhiza. Water movement of a plant. We looked at how plants absorb water from the soil and move it into vascular tissue. We have to try and understand how this water is transported to various parts of the plant. Is the water movement active or is it still passive? Since the water has to be moved up a stream, again gravity what provides the energy for this. Root pressure. As various ions from the soil are actively transported into the vascular tissue of the roots, water follows its potential gradient and increases the pressure inside the xylem. This positive pressure is called root pressure and can be responsible for pushing up water to small height in the stem. How can we see the root pressure exist? Choose a small soft stem plant and on a day when there is plenty of atmospheric moisture, cut the stem horizontally near the base with a sharp blade. Early in the morning, you will soon see drop of solution ooze out of the cut stem. This come out due to the positive root pressure. If you fix a rubber tube to the cut stem as a sleeve, you can actually collect the major the rate of exudation, and also determine the composition of the exuded. Effect of the root pressure is also observable at night and early morning when evaporation is low. The excess water collects in the form of droplets around special opening of vein near the tip of grass blade and leaves of many herbaceous parts. Such water loss in its liquid phases is known as guttation. Root pressure can at best only provide a modest push in the overall process of water transport. They obviously do not play a major role in water movement up tall tree. The greatest contribution of the root pressure may be to re-establish the continuous chain of water molecules in the xylem, which often break under the enormous tension created by transpiration. Root pressure does not account for majority of water transport. Most plants meet their need by transpiratory pool. Transpiration pool. Despite the absence of a heart or circulatory system in plant, the upward flow of water through xylem in plant can achieve fairly high rates up to 15 meters per hour. How is this movement accomplished? A long-standing question is whether water is pushed or pulled through the plant. Most researchers agree that water is mainly pulled through the plant and that the driving force for the process is transpiration from the leaves. This is referred to as cohesion tension transpiration pool model of water transport. But what generates this transpiration pool? Water is transient in plant. Less than 1% of water reaching the leaf is used in photosynthesis and plant growth. Most of it is lost through the stomata in leaves. This water loss is known as transpiration. You have studied transpiration in an earlier classes by enclosing a healthy plant in polythene bag and observing the droplets of water formed inside the bag. You could also study water loss from leaf using cobalt chloride paper, which turns color on absorbing water. Transpiration. Transpiration is the evaporative loss of water by plants. It occurs mainly through stomata. Besides the loss of water vapor in transpiration, exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the leaf also occur through these stomata. Normally, stomata are open in daytime and closed during night. The immediate cause of the opening or closing stomata is a change in the turgidity of the gut cell. The inner wall of the gut cell towards the pore or stomatal aperture is thick and elastic. When turgidity increases within the two gut cells, flanking each stomatal aperture or pore, the thin outer wall bulges out and forces the inner wall into a crescent shape. The opening of the stomata is also aided due to the orientation of microfibrils in the cell wall of the gut cell. Cellulose microfibrils are oriented radially rather than longitudinally, making it easier for the stoma to open. When gut cell loss turgor due to water loss or water stress, the elastic inner wall regain their original shape. The gut cell become flaccid and the stoma closes. Usually, the lower surface of dorsiventral open dicotyledonous leaf has a greater number of stomata, while in isobilateral open monocotyledonous leaf they are about equal on both surfaces. Transpiration is affected by several external factors: temperature, light, humidity, wind speed. Plant factors that affect transpiration include number and distribution of stomata, percent of open stomata, water status of plant, canopy structure, etc. The transpiration-driven ascent of xylem shape depends mainly on the following physical properties of water: cohesion, mutual attraction between water molecules; adhesion, attraction of water molecules to polar surface such as the surface of tracheary elements; surface tension, water molecules are attracted to each other in the liquid phase more than to water in the gas phase. These properties gives water high tensile strength, that is an ability to resist a pulling force, and high capillarity, that is the ability to rise in thin tube. In plant, capillarity is aided by the small diameter of the tracheary elements, the tracheates and the vessel elements. The process of photosynthesis requires water. The system of xylem vessel from the root to the leaf vein can supply the needed water, but what force does a plant use to move water molecule into the leaf parenchyma cell where they are needed? As water evaporated through the stomata, since the thin film of water over the cell is continuous, it results in pulling of water molecule by molecule into the leaf from the xylem. Also, because of lower concentration of water vapor in the atmosphere as compared to the substomatal cavity and intercellular spaces, water diffuses into the surrounding air. The creates a pool. Measurement reveal that the forces generated by the transpiration can create pressure sufficient to lift a xylem-sized column of water over 130 meters. Transpiration and photosynthesis, a compromise. Transpiration has more than one purpose. It creates transpiration pool for absorption and transport of plant, supplies water for photosynthesis, transport minerals from the soil to all parts of plant, cool leaf surface sometimes 10 to 15 degrees by evaporative cooling, maintain the shape and structure of the plant by keeping cell target. An actively synthesizing plant has an insatiable need for water. Photosynthesis is limited by available water, which can be swiftly depleted by transpiration. The humidity of rainforest is largely due to this vast cycling of water from root to leaf to atmosphere and back to the soil. The evaluation of the C4 photosynthetic system is probably one of the strategies for maximizing the availability of carbon dioxide while minimizing water loss. C4 plants are twice as efficient as C3 plants in terms of fixing carbon dioxide, making sugar. However, a C4 plant loses only half as much water as a C3 plant for the same amount of carbon dioxide fixed. Uptake and transport of mineral nutrients. Plants obtain their carbon and most of their oxygen from carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. However, their remaining nutritional requirements are obtained from water and minerals in the soil. Uptake of mineral ion. Unlike water, all minerals cannot be passively absorbed by the root. 2 factors account for this. One, minerals are present in the soil as charged particles, ion, which cannot move across cell membranes, and 2, the concentration of minerals in the soil is usually lower than the concentration of minerals in the root. Therefore, most minerals you must enter the root by active absorption into the cytoplasm of epidermal cell. These need energy in the form of ATP. The active uptake of ion is partly responsible for the water potential gradient in root and therefore for the uptake of water by osmosis. Some ions also move into the epidermal cells passively. Ions are absorbed from the soil by both passive and active transport. Specific proteins in the membranes of root hair cell actively pump ion from the soil into the cytoplasm of epidermal cell. Like all cells, the epidermal cell have many transport proteins embedded in their plasma membrane. They let some solute across the membrane but not other. Transport protein of endodermal cell are control point where a plant adjusts the quantity and the type of solute that reach the xylem. Note that the root endodermis because of the layer of suberin has the ability to actively transport ion in one direction only. Translocation of mineral ion. After the ion have reached xylem through the active or passive uptake or a combination of two, their further transport of the stream to all parts of the plant is through the transpiration stream. The chief sink for the mineral element are the growing region of the plant, such as the apical and lateral meristem, young leaves, developing flower, fruits and seeds, and storage organ. Unloading of mineral ion occur at the fine vein ending through diffusion and active uptake by the cell. Mineral ion are frequently remobilized, particularly from older sensing part. Older dying leaves export much of their minerals content to younger leaves. Similarly, before leaf fall in deciduous plant, minerals are removed to the other part. Elements most readily mobilized are phosphorus, sulfur, nitrogen and potassium. Some elements that are structural components like calcium are not remobilized. Analysis of the xylem exudates shows that though some of the nitrogen travel in inorganic ion, much of it is carried in the organic form or as amino acid and related compound. Similarly, small amount of P and S are carried as organ compound. In addition, small amount of exchange of material does take place between xylem and phloem. Hence, it is not that we can clearly make a distinction and say categorically that xylem transport only inorganic nutrient while phloem transport only organic material as was traditionally believed. Phloem transport. Flow from source to sink. Food, primarily sucrose, is transported by the vascular tissue phloem from a source to sink. Usually, source is understood to be that part of the plant which synthesizes the food, that is leaf, and sink the part of that need or store the food. But the source and sink may be reversed depending on the season or plant's need. Sugar stored in root may be mobilized to become a source of food in the early spring when the buds of trees act as a sink, but they need energy for growth and development of the photosynthetic apparatus. Since the source-sink relationship is variable, the direction of movement in the phloem can be upward or downward, that is bidirectional. This contrasts that of the xylem, where the movement is always unidirectional, that is upward. Hence, unlike one-way flow of water in transpiration, food in phloem sap can be transported in any required direction so long as there is a source of sugar and a sink able to use, store or remove the sugar. Phloem sap is mainly water and sucrose, but other sugar, hormones and amino acid are also transported or translocated through phloem. Pressure flow or mass flow hypothesis. The accepted mechanism used for the translocation of sugar from source to sink is called pressure flow hypothesis. As glucose is prepared at source by photosynthesis, it is converted to sucrose, a disaccharide. The sugar is then moved in the form of sucrose into the companion cell and then into the living phloem sieve tube cell by active transport. This process of loading at the source produce a hypertonic condition in phloem. Water is in the adjacent xylem moves into the phloem by osmosis. As osmotic pressure builds up, the phloem sap will move to area of lower pressure. At the sink, osmotic pressure must be reduced. Again, active transport is necessary to move the sucrose out of the phloem sap, and in the cell which will use the sugar, converting it into energy, starch or glucose, cellulose. As sugar are removed, the osmotic pressure decreases and water move out of the phloem. To summarize, the movement of sugar in the phloem begins at the source where sugar are loaded, actively transported into the sieve tube. Loading of phloem set up a water potential gradient that facilitates the mass movement in the phloem. Phloem tissue is composed of sieve tube cells which form the long columns with holes in their end wall called sieve plates. Cytoplasmic strands pass through the hole in the sieve plate, so forming continuous filament. As hydrostatic pressure in the sieve tube of phloem increases, pressure flow begins and the sap moves through the phloem. Meanwhile, at the sink, incoming sugar are actively transported out of the phloem and removed. As complex carbohydrate, the loss of solute produces a high water potential in the phloem and water passes out, returning eventually to xylem. A simple experiment called girdling was used to identify the tissues through which food is transported. On the trunk of a tree, a rise of a bark up to a depth of the phloem layer can be carefully removed. In the absence of downward movement of the food, the portion of the bark above the ring on the stem becomes swollen after a few weeks. This simple experiment shows that phloem is the tissue responsible for translocation of food, and the transport takes place in one direction, that is towards the root. This experiment can be performed by